Good morning, Washington, and all the ships at sea, Baltimore, Annapolis, too. How y'all doing, Dave? It's Dave on Dave TV for the 20th of April, 2013. Big news yesterday, of course, the Boston bombing suspects. One was killed, one was captured. Very interesting, watching it all play out last night. The guy hiding in the boat, all that stuff. And then you look at, I guess, the one thing that you have to get with all this stuff is journalists analyzing journalists, analyzing journalists, analyzing journalists. So we have journalistic judge. Here come the judge. It's Judge Paul Farhi there at the Washington Post. The cacophony of breaking news, erroneous reporting can travel fast in a wired age, but corrections can too. So basically he's saying, with all this crazy new journalism and Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest and all that other stuff, that journalists can, they're out there throwing things at you faster than ever. Half of them are wrong, but at the same time, things get corrected even faster. We're making more mistakes than ever, but they're being corrected faster than ever. So there's a good side to it. Of course, Paul Farhi, who writes these kind of dry talking heads. Well, I'll interview the talking heads and write up a dry kind of, unremarkable piece for the thin style section on Saturday. It doesn't matter. Was it the day before? The day before in Friday's Post, of course, the Washington Post has to run a correction for Farhi's CNN piece that ran the previous week. So here's the judge being corrected Friday, and now the judge is judging other journalists on Saturday. I don't know, man. It's just there's something crazily surreal. It's almost as if no matter what happens today, no matter what big stories happen today, whether terrorists or whatever, journalism and the journalists, the star journalists, always have to remain the center of the story. Journalists covering journalists. It drives you crazy. I mean, you look at Erik Wemple's Washington Post, the Erik Wemple blog. I mean, it's all about journalists covering journalists covering journalists. And some of it I think is valid. I mean, it is. Here's the New York Post running bizarre covers of, two guys they thought did the bombing who didn't do it, and Erik Wemple takes them to task, which is, I guess, a good thing. But then you got Erik Wemple talking about doing this cheap shot against Politico, where they're paying there's a certain journalist on contract that signed a contract with Politico that is leaving to go somewhere else, but he can't leave until his contract's up, so they're basically paying him to do nothing. And that's some big deal. I mean, that happens in the media business all the time, doesn't it? I mean, when you cover radio and TV, that's par for the course. There's lots of times where, a journalist gets paid, a year or 6 months or something to do nothing because they want him off the air, but they don't want him going to another station. So basically, you just sit there and collect your checks and go golfing and whatever you do. I don't know why. Is that a new thing in the newspaper business or the print business? I don't think so. But according to Erik Wemple, he's never heard of that before. I don't know, man. What are you going to do? Let's see here. What's going on in the local media stuffy? Politico, Dylan Byers had an interesting thing the other day. Basically, what Dylan's doing is basically he spends a lot of his time just telling how wonderful journalists are. Jeff Zucker there, the new head of CNN, is how CNN shined this week. And then there was a big thing about Pete Williams there, and how Pete Williams, who was just sitting there in the studio of NBC in Washington, breaking news item after news item after news item about the Boston bombings and the search for the two Boston bombers and all that. And what a great guy Pete Williams is. And I mean, this is basically as he's doing his job. Basically, Pete's doing his job, and at the same time, the journalists are just doing the circle jerk. Isn't he great? Isn't he great? Isn't he great? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, at least wait till the story's over before you do that. I mean, it's just, journalists, we're stars, and we're the center of everything. You kind of wonder why a lot of people outside the Beltway don't like journalists. Whoa. They just love themselves. They love themselves tremendously. I don't know. What else is going on? Looking at the local media bloggers for the past week. Here's a good one from David Zurawik. Boston Manhunt brings out best, worst in TV news outlets Friday. Well, okay. 3 comments. Well, he posted it 16 minutes ago, but well, that's one. The thing is, in this internet age, people want their news fast, fast, fast. And that's the way it is. I mean, we'll have a story here in Washington where the local TV and radio stations. I mean, it's like WTOP had it at 6:47, WNEW had it at 6:48, the Washington Post had it on their website at 6:52. And that's a big deal. And sometimes it doesn't really matter whether it's right or wrong. It's just somebody had it first, and it doesn't even mean they broke the story themselves. They just reported it. It's some story that happened in Europe or something, new pope. Yeah. And it's like they're all rushing to get it up first. Who got it up 2 seconds before the other guy? And that's really important. And it's like, okay, whatever. And then we had, of course, the other big news this week, journalism-wise, is all those Edward R. Murrow Awards. TOP won a bunch. BAL won a bunch. Interesting, the new WNEW won 1-1, but they're really happy about that for the derecho. They won a continuing coverage derecho award for a large market, and so that's cool. And they're very, very pleased about that, which again makes you, it's still the drip, drip, drip. That old WNEW is going to keep on trucking. Despite the fact that WTOP has such incredibly better ratings, don't you think? Al Neuharth died yesterday, Friday. He was the founder of USA Today. I always saw him as kind of this eternal optimist. He just seemed like he maybe penned columns in USA Today for a long time. And he just seemed like he was always really gung-ho about journalism and an optimist about all that. Interesting thing about the Gamut. Remember we were talking about the Gamut, that crazy radio station that just plays a little everything? I was listening to them yesterday in the car. I mean, they were going from they'll play big band music and then segue into punk rock and then segue into bluegrass and folk, and it's just a giant mix, and it's really, really cool to listen to. But they're going to be adding 3 shows on Sunday nights. Big band jump at 7 p.m. Anything. I guess that means just about anything at 9 p.m. And Little Steven's Underground Garage, which of course used to be heard on the old 94.7 back when it had a rock format. So that's cool. That's very cool. I think the Gamut needs to. I think there's a lot of talk now about getting a lot of these low power FMers around. You have Bluegrass Country on 105.5. You have HFS 97.5 up in Baltimore. You got a lot of these little signals going. 102.9 WTNT here in Washington area. Hubbard needs to get some more of those low-powered FMers and start putting the Gamut on a lot of different signals. And they need to get an online feed for the Gamut too. I think that would really help them. I mean, it's going to cost them a bit because I guess you got to pay the copyright and all that. But I think that would be a really cool thing to do. So there. Don Geronimo. Oh, Don. Don's a character. Don's interesting, isn't he? Apparently he got really angry at a cross. He now works in Sacramento doing sports talker out there, morning show on a sports talker, and he got mad at a crosstown rival, bunch of DJs on another station, on a rock station, who were making fun about, joking about Boston after the blast. And he really went off on them. And he actually got the station actually suspended the rock station's morning show team. Could be into next week. Who knows? Maybe they're off the station permanently. And of course, there's all this sniping going on. That's Don for you. I missed that in the Washington market. Don would go railing against some other radio personality in the Washington market, and there'd be a huge feud. And we need more of that here in Washington. We need like Elliot to attack the Junkies, and then the Junkies can go after Kane, and Kane can hit Tommy McFly, and have them all fighting. Now that would be good for ratings, wouldn't it? I don't know. It seems amazing to me that Don. I know when Don left WJFK in 2008, I figured he's going to be back on the radio dial here soon. Now it's been 5 years. It's been 5 years since Don left the Washington radio market, and I'm just surprised. I would have guessed. I would have bet in 2008 that he would be back within a year or two. And it's amazing to me that he hasn't. And it's amazing to me that somebody hasn't put him on. You look at like a station like ESPN 980. They got Mike and Mike in the mornings. Their ratings are flat. You would think they would really want a killer morning show over there, and somebody like Don Geronimo would be perfect for them. He could do a pop culture / sports show in the mornings. Why haven't they done? Yeah, and I realize, maybe they don't want to spend the money. Maybe they got contracts with ESPN. They got to run this. I don't know, but it just seems to me that he would be, for doing like a morning show on ESPN 980, or maybe doing an afternoon show on WMAL instead of that piped-in, boring, dull Sean Hannity. That Geronimo would certainly. There are some places out there that he would easily fit and could really raise a station's profile. But hey, what do you know? What do you know about that? All right, folks, hitting the 12-minute mark for this Saturday edition of Dave TV. All the excitement in Boston seems to be over, at least for the time being. And journalists are all patting themselves on the back, whether they got it right or wrong. Wow! Thanks for watching Dave TV. Live long and prosper.